For the sake of time, we're just going to stop it at the end of the chapter. But next week we'll still be talking to the Jews and then everybody. Will be how this is working. But to get us back in the zone here, thinking back to last week and what we were looking at in the Scriptures, according to Romans 2, where do good and moral people stand before God, and why? Thinking back to what Paul communicated, where do good and moral people stand before God? We get the debauched, pagan person out there who is, I don't even have a concept of God. God's like, they're condemned. They're condemned because actually they do have a concept of me because I put it there, and they're rejecting it, so they're condemned. But what about me? I'm like a good guy. I agree that those guys are wrong. I'm like a moral person. Mark? Same. Also condemned. You're also condemned. Why? What's the rationale? He's not just stating like bumper sticker slogan, you're condemned and you're condemned and you're condemned. He's explaining himself. He's like, this is why you do not have an argument here. There's like, you're condemned without excuse, he says. You have no excuse. And proves it. He's like, puts him just like, oh, what's the logic? What's the rationale with that?
Because a moral person knows what's right, but still doesn't always do it.
That's the follow-through. Like, it's the second part, right? You know what's right. Oh, good. Good for you. You still don't do it, though. Like, so, where's the merit? Where's your excuse? Yeah, but God, I agree with you about sin. Well, you still doing this sin? Yes. There's no difference. That person is claiming they don't know and sinning, and they're condemned. You're claiming you do know and you're sinning. Well, you're also condemned. Like, by the nature of your excuse. I'm a good person. So by good person, you mean not doing sinful things? Like, you know the difference between right and wrong? Yes. And you do the wrong? Yes. Okay. Moving on. Right? You raised your hand like, oh, what about me, Paul? Oh, never mind. I don't want you to talk to me anymore, Paul. I'm in a worse place than the person who I would have looked at as the worst, right? The pagan person says, look at, they're basking in their sin. Like, yeah, boy, they deserve judgment. Paul's like, actually, if you're to weigh the two, you deserve more judgment because you're there saying, we shouldn't do the thing that I'm doing. It's like, that's kind of a little bit worse even. If you had to weigh it, you're both just equally condemned. But if you had to pick which one's worse, you're like a hypocrite in it, you know? So it's like, oh, that was worse than the other guy, who I thought was pretty bad. What was the message that Paul proclaimed within the broader gospel message? You remember we kind of finished. Paul said, this is the message that I proclaim, and it's within the gospel message. He said, because before he said, I present this good news wherever I go. Then he's like, I also have this message that I preach. You guys remember what it was? It's judgment, right? The message was judgment. Which is interesting because often we'd say, hey, Christianity, we shouldn't judge. As Christians, we shouldn't judge. And Paul's like, my message about what Christianity is always includes strong judgment. Like, I lead with judgment. Massive judgment. I want to look at a couple of those verses there. Verse 8, we looked at. But he will pour out his anger and wrath on those who live for themselves, who refuse to obey the truth and instead live lives of wickedness. And then in 16, and this is the message I proclaim, that the day is coming when God, through Christ Jesus, will judge everyone's secret life. And then worse yet, as far as the message goes, in verse 11, for God shows no favoritism. Dang it! If you're going in before a judge and you know you're going 75 in a 35 mile an hour zone, and the person's like, hey, don't worry, this judge is super fair. He's a just judge. It's like, doggone, that was my only hope, was that maybe you'd just kind of favor me a little bit. Remember my uncle? You went to school with him, didn't you? He's like, no, I'm a fair judge. Oh, man. So judgment's coming, and it's fair, and I'm a horrible person, and I totally know it, and God knows it? Uh-oh. I was like, yes, this is the message that I present. This is key part of the gospel. Please. We're getting some fans turned on. I'm already blowing so much hot air that we need fans. God's wrath and judgment of sin is certainly coming, and everyone will be judged fairly and absolutely. Sinful people, that is to say everyone, will be punished. This is the message that Paul is bringing around. It has to, and the rest of the message has to sit on that. We often want to jump to, let me get to Romans 5. Let me get to Romans 6. Let me get to that good stuff. No. This is the foundation of the message. None of the Jesus stuff makes sense. None of the salvation, none of the grace, none of the love makes sense if we're not getting what our condition and our situation is. This has to be part of the message. That's what Paul says. Everywhere I go, this is the message I'm presenting. Judgment is coming, and it is fair, and it is right, and no one is escaping this. And it's not like, oh no, I can't hide from this mean God. It's like, no, you deserve this. God's going to say, this is what you deserve. You're like, yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right, God. There's nothing that you're presenting here that's like, but wait. It's like, I can't. That's what he's kind of, so he's already locked in two groups. The pagan, I'm pretending God doesn't even exist, and the moralist who says, no, I'm basically a good person. It's like, oh, you're both done. So there's one more group he's going to get to here and say, well, okay, but what about? Paul, what you're saying totally makes sense when discussing humanity at large. I agree, Paul. What you're saying makes sense when I'm looking around here, but obviously things are a little bit different for God's chosen people, right? So I get that you're talking humanity, but we're God's chosen people that were selected out of the nations and out of humanity to be God's chosen people, right? Like the Jews, we must be a little bit different from what you're talking about, right? Because you're talking general revelation of a conscience. That man, all humanity has God's law written on their heart generally. But we got more than that, right? We're the Jews. So surely you're not condemning us as well. Paul's like, let's talk about it. That's the next thing he's going to get to. The next progression is in verse 17. You who call yourselves Jews are relying on God's law, and you boast about your special relationship with Him. You know what He wants. You know what is right because you've been taught His law. You are convinced that you are a guide for the blind and a light for people who are lost in darkness. You think you can instruct the ignorant and teach children the ways of God, for you are certain that God's law gives you complete knowledge and truth. Yeah, exactly. See, exactly, Paul. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, you get it. Thank you. We'll get to the next bit in a second. But so he kind of goes through. This would be the claim of the Jew. This would be where the Jew's heart and mind would go when Paul's communicating judgment is deserved upon humanity. But aren't we? You call yourself a Jew. You're relying on God's law, and you boast about your special relationship with. But Paul, don't I as a Jew have a special relationship with God? I mean, and we're going to look at the text here. Not the only text, but if you want to just look at Genesis 17, verse 3, the beginning of this special relationship that the Jews have with God, what's that about? Remember, they're children of Abraham. We call them the Israelites, the children of Israel. Israel, a country. What was Israel before it was a country? You guys remember?
It was a person.
It was a person. Which person? Jacob, right? Jacob has his name changed to Israel, so he said the children of Israel. You might as well just say the children of Jacob, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. This is a family line. And so where does that start? It starts here in Genesis 17, verse 3. At this, Abraham fell down on the ground. Then God said to him, "This is my covenant with you. I will make you the father of a multitude of nations. What's more, I am changing your name. It will no longer be Abram. Instead, you will be called Abraham, for you will be the father of many nations. I will make you extremely fruitful. Your descendants will become many nations, and kings will be among them. I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you from generation to generation. This is the everlasting covenant. I will always be your God and the God of your descendants after you. And I will give the entire land of Canaan, where you now live as a foreigner, to you and your descendants. It will be their possession forever, and I will be their God." We call that an unconditional, eternal covenant with Abraham's descendants. It's one of those, it's worth noting, the way that God speaks there. He says, here's how this is going to go down. I'm going to do these things for you and your descendants. Unconditional. He's just saying, I'm making a promise with myself about you. This will happen. That's a good covenant to get. That's a good thing. Like, Mark, I'm giving you ice cream later today. I'm not. But if I, like, that's not it. There's no if. There's no, if you do this, I will give you, like, that's a conditional covenant. It means, oh, Mark has to do something to get the ice cream. If I just say, Mark, I'm giving you ice cream later, unconditional. It's going to happen. So this is something the Jews look at very much and say, hey, God selected us special. Selected us special. We are a chosen people. We have a special relationship with God. Claiming that, like Jew, that's why they're so big. I'm like, hey, we're descendants of Abraham. Why is that such a big deal? Because descendants of Abraham have a special relationship with God, and we're claiming that. I'm a Jew. I have a thing here with God. So that's kind of, he brings that to light. You who call yourselves Jews are relying on God's law, and you boast about your special relationship with Him. Do they have a special relationship with God?
Yes.
Yes, right? So he's not saying you guys are just boastful people. No, they're things. There's, I'd say, half-truths. They're claiming half-truths and making a case for themselves. Okay, so he says you've got a special definition. By definition, a Jew has a unique standing before God. Yes, there's more to it than that, but yes, that is a reality. They have specific, exact expectations communicated by God, the law. In verse 18, you know what He wants because you know what is right, because you have been taught His law. Do the Jews have, at this time especially, a much more specific understanding of the thoughts and intentions and will of God than their Gentile counterparts?
Yes.
Oh, certainly. Right? Remember the condemnation against the Gentiles was like, hey, sometimes you get it right, and you acknowledge the conscience that I put within you. The Jews, he's like, cross the T, dot the I, this is what it looks like to live a good, decent, moral life before me. These are my expectations. This is sin, this is holiness. Let me just spell it out for you in like ad nauseum, right? You guys have read Leviticus? Ad nauseum. Like, I'm so bored. There's so many specific things where God's like, and do this, and do this, and don't do this, and don't do this, and right, this is what I want it to look like. So the Jews have that. It's like, okay, good. You've got this knowledge. You have a very specific understanding of God, way more than these guys do. So again, pro-Jew, good for you guys. You're right. You are different than the Gentiles. You do have way more access to truth from God than the Gentiles do. You're right, Jews. You are special in who you are, and you are special in what you have. They are the tool that God has used to shine His light among the nations. You are convinced that you are a guide for the blind and a light for people who are lost in darkness. Right? The Jews were meant to be. You will be my holy people. You'll be a kingdom of priests. You guys are going to be the ones that I'm going to use to reach out to all the ignorant Gentiles around you. They're going to come to you guys, and they're going to get something from that. That's who the Jews are. You have that. You're a special tool. You are the priesthood. Like you're holy. You're set apart for special use. They have complete knowledge of God to the point that they are teachers of God's truths. In verse 20, you think you can instruct the ignorant and teach children the ways of God, for you are certain that God's law gives you complete knowledge and truth. You guys know so much of God's expectations and God's standards that really you're the teachers here. You have so much that you're the ones that have things to offer. You're right, Jews. You are special and unique. You are different than this other group that I was just talking about. It's like, yeah, good. That's what I was thinking, Paul. That's exactly it. Us Jews are on God's side in this conversation. Next sentence, right? Paul keeps going. Well then, if you teach others, why don't you teach yourself? You tell others not to steal, but do you steal? You say it is wrong to commit adultery, but do you commit adultery? You condemn idolatry, but do you use items stolen from pagan temples? You are so proud of knowing the law, but you dishonor God by breaking it. No wonder the Scriptures say the Gentiles blaspheme the name of God because of you. Knowing and obeying are two very different concepts. Right? So the Jews are like, look at all that we know and all that we have and all that God has given us. I was like, yeah, what have you done with it? Oh, ow. high. Right, look at us. Oh, that's a bigger fall, right? The Jews, look at, we're kind of getting up here. Nope, we're actually just falling even further. That's kind of what happens here. Are you living out what you know to be God's perfect standards? No, you're not, right? You've been given more understanding, and that should increase your knowledge of, wow, we're so far off the mark. If anyone were convinced of their awful need of a Savior and something outside of themselves to save it, it should have been the Jewish people, because they had so much telling them, wow, I am not measuring up here. Like, I am failing on so many counts. They're in the same place as the moralists. In condemning others, they condemn themselves. Right? In saying, okay, look, we have a perfect standard, and you guys need to keep it, and look, you're not. Neither are you. Ooh, ouch. Same result, but more acute. Again, if you wanted to say, well, who's more guilty? The Jews are more guilty. If you wanted to, I mean, everyone's just condemned. So it's like 0 is 0 kind of thing. You're all equal condemnation. But it actually, what would have been, what they use as kind of a bragging point of like, well, we should be exempt because of this. Actually, you're more condemned because of what you have. All the things you're using as kind of an argument for you are an argument against you. And before we get to, yeah, Jews, oh, it's like, no, this certainly applies to modern day, like, we have all that the Jews have, you know, and more. So anyone who would have a basic understanding of kind of like superficial Christianity, the Ten Commandments, like the stuff that we would all know, basic religious, religious American, would fall within this same thing. Oh, I went to Sunday school, and I was in the choir, and I this, and I that, and I'm a Baptist, or I'm a Catholic, or I'm a, like, whatever sort of group identity that we would claim and things like that. We're 100% just like these guys. Like, oh, but here's all the things. God, surely not me. I have my group identification, right? I'm part of this denomination. I went to Sunday school. My family's Christian. I'm part of a Christian nation. And, right? Surely you're not talking about me. I'm more talking about you. Like, all the things you just mentioned make this way worse for you, actually. That's what he's kind of presenting here. And some of the specifics, just the basics here, but you tell others not to steal, but do you steal? Oh, yeah, okay, we do. That's just basic human stuff. Something I want you to note, though, is it doesn't come across in the English here, just because of how our language works. When he says you, all the time he says, you tell others not to steal, but do you steal? You say it is wrong. That you is a singular you. So this isn't like a collective. You guys ever know, like, hey, whatever political persuasion you are, it's come up that it's like, oh, your state or your country voted for that person. Right, your state voted for your governor, so that's what you got. Like, but I didn't. No, I voted for this guy. So, like, collectively, sure, New York did this, but not me. Paul's not talking like that. He's saying you and you and you. He's focusing in on a singular. He's saying but basically the Jew, the person, the Christian. I'm saying Christian. He's not saying that, but you as an individual. That all the things he's saying, it's you do this, and you do this, and you do this, and you could just kind of point your finger at anyone. So this isn't he's not talking collective actions, collective judgment. He's talking individual judgment within this group.
It's a one-on-one intimate thing. So,
yeah, like the worst kind of intimacy. Intimate judgment, right?
With radio, you're supposed to talk with one person, not like the whole collective.
Sure, yes.
That's the same.
Don't talk to the county, talk to the listener. That's what he's doing here. It's very much that. Thank you. Yeah, so when he's saying this stuff, he's targeting the individuals, and he says, you say it is wrong to commit adultery, but if you commit adultery, these are basic Ten Commandment stuff. You condemn idolatry, but you use items stolen from pagan temples. It's like, wait, what? That's kind of weird. So you can speculate a little bit about what specifically are they doing, what you can get. So the idea would kind of be here, deriving some form of benefit from pagan idolatry would be kind of the idea like, okay, man, it's so bad, like those guys are throwing coins in the wishing well, thinking that that's going to somehow like manipulate the god of the wishing well to do this thing. That's so dumb, that's so wrong. Kind of scoop up the coins and go home, right? It could be overtly that. A lot of times the way that sacrifices work, it is even today, people will say they give a gift to something to an idol, like they'll put food in front of the idol, or they'll put a thing in front of, and it just like sits there. So it would seem like some of the Jews are like, hey, look at these pagans. Oh, they're so bad, but they're lost. Ignorant savages. Like, And they're like taking from it. He's like, okay, wait. So you're condemning idolatry, but you're deriving benefit from idolatry. Like, that doesn't trip a flag for you? Like guys, come on. You're benefiting. You're like, hey, let me go check out the idols and see what I can get as a. And aren't I honoring God? He's like, no, you're not. You're taking things sacrificed to idols and benefiting from it. Like, no, this is you're. I don't know. Make some stupid analogy, but like. You're a Christian running a casino condemning gambling. It's like, wait, like, I don't gamble, but all these suckers do, and I make my thing. No, guy, like, so he's just calling out what would seem to be overt sins. What specifically it was, I don't know, but it would seem like it's something to do with, there's something to do with idolatry, and you guys are benefiting from it somehow and getting some sort of lucrative means of it, and it just boils down to, you guys are doing the things that you know you're not supposed to do. You're condemning it and doing it at the same time. Not a good deal. Not a good move. They are inherently unable to keep the requirements of the law. In verse 23, you are so proud of knowing the law, but you dishonor God by breaking it. Yes, Jews, you have such knowledge, but you have no ability to actually live up to what you know, and that should be like on the forefront of your mind. And you guys, if you read the Jewish law, what should happen, I think we talked about it years ago when we were going through the chronology there, but when God presented his standards on Mount Sinai, he's like, here are the commandments I give before you. Will you do this? The response should have been, if there was an inkling of self-awareness, we can't do that. Like, we're not going to be able to toe that line, God. No, we can't. We would like to, but we can't because we are horrible people. Instead, at Mount Sinai, it was, rah, rah, you got it, God, we're your people. And that continues throughout history. That tends to be how the Jews viewed the law. This is a means of attaining peace with God. And God's like, no, you're misreading that. You can't keep this, and you prove it in your daily lives constantly. You know it, and you don't do it. You're proud of knowing the law, but you dishonor God by breaking it. And the next line gets even worse for him. No wonder the scriptures say the Gentiles blaspheme the name of God because of you. Again, even worse. It's one thing to say, hey, I do what I want, and I kind of think it's bad, but I'm going to do it. It's another thing to say, I, as the representative of God, who will teach you the things of God, am going to do this thing. Because I know people are like, well, if that's what it is to be a follower of God, if that's what it is to be a representative of God, well, my goodness, I'm just going to spit on the whole thing. Spit on you, spit on your God. See this today, don't we? Right? We see a leader stands up and says, hey, look at me, I am so-and-so. And it happens to pastors all the time because power corrupts and whatever. But you see it. Wait, that pastor took money from little old ladies and he has an air-conditioned dog house. And wasn't that a thing? Right? An air-conditioned dog house and like super expensive cars. It's like he's doing all of these unethical, not that being wealthy is unethical, but the idea of like he took money to help people and actually is just benefiting. It's like, whoa, that's horrible. It's interesting with what happened is in the last 20 years, a lot of sexual scandals and stuff have come up within the church. It kind of like the top blew off on that. When I don't do much with social media now, but when we were doing videos and stuff, we did a little video of our family doing the food pantry thing. And we were like, hey, this is something we're doing at our church. And there's several of the comments were like, oh, you better keep those kids away from the pastor. It's like, well, it's a little ironic, right? I am the pastor, they're my children. So as a person who didn't know, but the idea was, oh, look at, because pastors who present God's word defy God's word, it gives a bad name to the whole thing. It's worse than if some just no-name person on the street does something bad. That's what the Jews are. Again, so like even worse. So like, aren't we a little bit better than Gentiles? It's actually worse. You're worse than the Gentiles. So the Gentiles do something and say, wow, bad Gentiles. When you guys do it, we say, evil God. That's worse. Again, that's like that's pretty heavy. It's like, ow, Paul, I don't like this conversation anymore. Let's stop talking about us. This brings shame not only on themselves, but on God as well. Their disobedience is especially atrocious because they sin while holding the banner that says not to sin. Right? And the guy that says, adultery is wrong, goes out with his girlfriends. right? Like, and leaves his wife at home. It's like, that just seems extra bad, right? That seems a little bit more like you know what's going on here. Okay, the next passage. He's not done with them yet. He's just going to knock out any hope they have. The Jewish ceremony of circumcision has value only if you obey God's law. But if you don't obey God's law, you're no better off than an uncircumcised Gentile. And if the Gentiles obey God's law, won't God declare them to be his own people? In fact, uncircumcised Gentiles who keep God's law will condemn you Jews who are circumcised and possess God's law but don't obey it. Outward signs mean nothing if not accompanied by a changed heart. Right? You get, hey, but I'm a circumcised Jew, and I want to look at this. Just again, why is that such a big deal for them? If you continue on to that Genesis 17 passage, in verse 9 is where we stopped. So they've just been said, you will be my special holy people. I'm making that happen, says God. And then in verse 9, then God said to Abraham, your responsibility is to obey the terms of the covenant. You and all your descendants have this continual responsibility. This is the covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Each male among you must be circumcised. You must cut off the flesh of your foreskin as a sign of the covenant between me and you. From generation to generation, every male child must be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. This applies not only to members of your family, but also to the servants born in your household and the foreign-born servants whom you have purchased. All must be circumcised. Your bodies will bear the mark of my everlasting covenant. That's a key thing there. Any male who fails to be circumcised will be cut off from the covenant family for breaking the covenant. Your bodies will bear the mark of my everlasting covenant. So that circumcision was a physical sign of a thing that God had declared. He's like, I've made this covenant with you, and this is a physical thing I want you to do to acknowledge my covenant with you. So they're like, oh, good. So similar, not exactly the same, but there's some overlap with how we would view baptism. The Bible says that baptism, believer's baptism, is here's something that's been accomplished for you. You've been washed, you've been buried with Christ, you've been raised to new life with Christ. I want you baptized to acknowledge what's already taken place. And your baptism is a physical act to acknowledge a spiritual reality that is true. For these guys, it was very similar. It was just a more acute thing. Not cute thing, acute thing. It's wasn't cute. So physical circumcision, but what he says here is, okay, so you got the sign of circumcision. Like, oh, but look, I'm marked as a follower of God. Yeah, but there's no follow through. So you did the thing without any acknowledging any of the actual underlying importance of it. You just took the symbol, but you left the whole other thing there on the table. If you don't obey God's law, you're no better off than an uncircumcised Gentile. If there's no heart change, if you're not actually doing what God has asked you to do, then that's really not significant. There's no real benefit to you in that. Just a basic thing. Which would be better, to be uncircumcised and obey, or circumcised and disobedient?
To obey is always better.
That's what Paul says. He's like, if a Gentile, and again, it's a pretty big if, because he's already condemned all the Gentiles. It's like, if a Gentile were to not be circumcised but obey the law, well, certainly that's better than you obeying, or being circumcised and not obeying. Like, duh. Because it's not about the little physical thing that's going on. It's about this underlying principle. And it's meant to show, oh, my heart is dedicated to the Lord, and so I have a mark on my body to show that I am dedicated to the Lord. And he's like, yeah, the mark's meaningless, guys. Again, I'm circumcised, that sets me apart from everyone around me. You're really no different than anyone around you, because that's just a physical thing. Your heart is just as debauched and evil as everyone else around you. Case in point, your actions are just as bad as everyone's. Even though you've been given every available knowledge point that you, like, there's no confusion for you. In fact, uncircumcised Gentiles who keep God's law will condemn you Jews who are circumcised and possess God's law but don't obey it. There is zero gained righteousness from the boasts of the Jew. And again, I just want to highlight that again. This idea of like, yeah, but I've done this thing. I've done this good, God-honoring thing. Fill in the blank for today. Infant baptism. I'm a member of a church, right? I have group identity. I'm the treasurer of this denomination, right? You could fill in, like, these are things that people say, yeah, but I do this thing. I do that thing. Here's things that are good things that kind of set me apart as like a Christian. Right? Look at all the things I'm doing. Paul said the things that you're doing are just things. They're meaningless because it's the heart issue. That's the real problem. I don't care what you've done. Oh, great, you got a cross tattoo. Like, who cares? It doesn't mean anything because it's the heart issue. That's meant to be a reflection of an internal reality. And Jews, we can see there's internally a problem. Your internal reality is you're cut off from God, rightfully so. You're an evil person. All right, then he finishes. He doesn't finish. He's still going with these guys, but he's going to kind of just lay it down. In verse 28. For you are not a true Jew just because you are born of Jewish parents or because you have gone through the ceremony of circumcision. No, a true Jew is one whose heart is right with God. And true circumcision is not merely obeying the letter of the law. Rather, it is a change of heart produced by the Spirit. And a person with a changed heart seeks praise from God, not from people. A true representative of God on earth must have a changed heart. Look at your lives and your conduct. What's that telling you about your heart? Not very godlike. Right? And again, something I want to keep in mind is the section that we're in here, Paul is doing diagnostics. He's not giving a treatment plan. He's not saying, this is where things are, but, and he's not switching over it. He's just wanting everyone to be agreed. Do we all agree you have a basketball-sized tumor hanging on your heart? Right? Well, let's talk about treatment. No, first can we agree on this? You are in a bad spot. That's why we're seeing, he's going to say, hey, what you need, a true Jew is one whose heart is right with God. And he's not offering a way for that to be done here. He's not there yet. He's going to get there. But what he's saying is, look at a true Jew, someone who's actually part of the chosen people of God, that this stuff all applies to, that would be someone whose heart is right with God, and that would be manifest in their actions. And you guys do not have that. You have the opposite. You have hearts that are cut off from God, and we can see it in your life, and so you're condemned. So again, he's just giving that standard. He's not telling him how to avoid judgment, not saying what's available. He's just saying you are under judgment, rightfully so. Does that make sense? We want to keep in mind, whenever we're going through Romans 1:18 to 3:20, this is condemnation. This is why you are under judgment. Yeah, but we're not there yet. You gotta take that. There's nothing in here. The takeaway from these passages is, wow, I have nothing of myself to present as a case before God why he should like me, why he should save me, why he should do anything for me except send me to hell. God, that's where I should be. That's what should be happening with me. If Romans were to end here, reasonable book. Oh, you're right, God. You're right. I stand before you with no excuse, deserving judgment. Wow, that's sad, but you're right. God, you're right. You can end it there, and you are a good and holy and righteous and just God, and I deserve punishment, and so when you give it to me, it's all as it should be. None of this finger pointing. Well, if you're a loving God, then... No, there's no excuse. There's no finger wagging to be done here. Every human is guilty before God massively. That's where we are. And from that starting point, then we can go on to, okay, but what has God done about that? But we just want to be clear. This is where we are. Oftentimes, we don't want to sit here. We want to kind of be like, yes, sin, I'm not perfect. Thank you that Jesus came. Paul's like, no. Let's just be clear. It's not that you're not perfect. It's that you're 100% evil. It's not that I'm only 90%. No, you're all the way bad. That's where we are. But what about if I don't know? You do know. But what about if I'm a good person? You're not a good person. But what if I memorize Bible stuff? Doesn't matter. You're not living it out. You are condemned. You're a bad, evil sinner, and it's every one of us. That's what the context is. And so when he says here, a true Jew is one whose heart is right with God, and true circumcision is not merely obeying the letter of the law, rather it's a change of heart produced by the Spirit. What he's saying is, and you don't have that. Right? As a Jew, you don't have that. Because to be a Jew is to fall short of the standard of the law that you've been given, which means you're not right with God. Your heart hasn't been changed. Assuming, right, that the rest hasn't happened yet. We haven't talked about that. And a person with a changed heart seeks praise from God, not from people, and you guys are not that. That's the context here again. So it is kind of funny because that's like, it's heavy-handed what he says there. What about us Jews? He's like, bam, 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 bam. Like, wait, like, because the next question here, I'll cheat and go to the next verse here for next week. Then what's the advantage of being a Jew? It's like, that's a good natural question. Like, what about us Jews? Aren't we God's chosen people? He's like, here's all the reasons that's stupid and you're more condemned than anybody. Well, then what good is it? Like, it's a good question. It's kind of funny, right? And then we'll get into that. He'll talk. He's like, okay, that's the next point. He's kind of still dealing with them. Like, it's a hard truth. This is hard stuff to swallow. If we're actually going to accept what Paul is saying, what God is saying through Paul, it's like knee shaking. It's like uncomfortable. I don't like how this is making me feel. God, wrath is coming, and I'm 100% on the deserving wrath side with no excuse. No matter how good I've tried to be, I'm like totally deserving wrath. Oh goodness. We're going to see the natural human response is, but what about, right? Maybe you start just kind of like grabbing at things. We're going to see it next week. You guys have you seen a court case like on TV or something where the person's like, did you commit this murder? And the person's like, no, I didn't. Do you commit a murder? No, I did not do it. They find like, here's 10 videos of you committing the murder, and here's witness testimony. And the person's like, he made me do it, right? And, it's like, and actually, I think I was insane at the time. I think, and you're just kind of like, they're just grabbing at like, what is there anything that I can? We're going to get there with the Jews there because he's cornering humanity to now he has the best of humanity is here, and the best of humanity is totally deserving of judgment. And there's like a little freak out session that happens. But wait, maybe there's some redeeming quality, some excuse. And Paul's like, no, he's going to put the nail in the coffin. Next week, we'll look at that. Next step. No, totally deserving. And then the week after, that's the fun one. Because then it gets into like, oh, but there's more to the story. Thank you, God. But we in ourselves, there's nothing good here before us and God. So next week's another rough one. Week after that, super cool. Then it's like, whoo, gospel, good news. This is the news. We're going to get to the good news in 2 weeks. Any thoughts or, any thoughts for this? We've got a little bit of time.